Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel where likes, comments, and subs are always greatly appreciated. If you've recently discovered my channel, you probably know me from videos that feature multi-track recorders. But if you followed my channel for a while, you might be aware that all the way back in the beginning, I started the channel because I was interested in budget synthesizers. I started off with pocket operators and branched out from there. I'm really not in a position in my life to invest $4,000 in a full-fledged synthesizer. But I've always been on the lookout for other interesting budget synths that pop out on the market. One of the companies that have been producing budget synthesizers for a number of years now is Sonicware. It's a Japanese company. They have several different lines of synthesizers and samplers. Probably their best known line is the Liven series of synthesizers, and they all are kind of interesting since that they use the same exact plastic box or housing with the same layout of knobs and buttons. They just change the internal components, which will then change the types of sounds that that instrument can deliver. So I've been intrigued by the Sonicware line of Liven instruments. There just hasn't been one that's perfectly resonated with me based off of everything that I've seen until now. They recently released this, the Liven Evoke. I think it has some interesting potential. And I thought what I would do for you here today is deliver a first impressions video. So I'll unbox the Evoke, I'll test it out, maybe make a pattern or two, and just give you my general first impressions. This isn't going to be a deep dive using the instrument. I really don't know how to use the instrument yet. I've only seen a couple YouTube videos featuring it at this point in time. So this is just going to be a quick overview, first impressions, with a little bit of a demonstration of hopefully some of the capabilities of the Evoke. Let's start off by unboxing it. Now with the Liven series, I think they're relatively inexpensive, $230, $240 US, because they keep it minimal. They keep it bare bones and they continue to recycle the overall body of the synthesizer. So there isn't anything else in here other than the synthesizer itself. So this is the Evoke. It does not come with a power supply. There doesn't seem to be a manual inside the box. I think you have to look up the manual online. There's no cords that even come with it. It's just the synthesizer. Power-wise, it looks like it needs a 9-volt power supply, and that needs to be center positive, which is a little bit of a bummer. I've got guitar, pedals, stomp boxes. They all really need 9-volt power supplies, but they have pins that need center negative pins to be able to power it. So I don't think I'm going to be able to use any of those power supplies without an adapter that will invert the center negative to a center positive, which is what the Evoke needs. There's no USB connections on this guy, so you're really limited to the inputs that you see here on the front with a sync in and out to connect to Volcas and pocket operators. You've got line in and out, a headphone jack, and then, which is kind of nice, 5-pin MIDI in and out. The buttons are mushier than I actually thought they would be. So the buttons are a hard plastic, but the way they feel is pretty mushy with the way that you push down on them. I thought that they would be clickier, maybe not as clicky as, say, a mechanical keyboard, but I thought there'd be a little bit more click to them, and instead they just got a mushy feel. The knobs, though, are actually pretty great. So there's a healthy amount of resistance on the knobs, which should allow you to dial in exactly what you need. The value knob is an encoder that clicks, so I like that. So what we could do is pop some batteries into this, because it does take 6 AA batteries. So I'll find some 6 AA batteries, put them into the Evoke, and test it out. What makes the Evoke unique is that it has this Acoustronic Flux Oscillator up here at the top to begin your workflow. You're going to start off by selecting an acoustic sounding instrument. So this is like a piano sound. You have a violin there. So you start off with your acoustic sounding instrument, and then you can blend in a sound wave. And this allows you to blend in how much you got the acoustic instrument and then how much sound wave you're also blending with that. So you can also, I think, change the wave by holding down a shift here. And once you have that selected, you can start this backflow oscillator or backtide oscillator. And I think what that does is, especially for notes that are held down, once the sound is created, it has an oscillation effect that sort of comes back at you and oscillates back and forth. I think you mostly hear this on sounds that you're holding down a note for a while. And you can increase the speed of that. Once you're past that, you can go through a series of filters and LFOs, but I think the next level of secret sauce here is the granular effects that you can apply. Once you have that set that you like your sound, you can go through 4 different tracks along with a sequencer that's got 16 steps. I think you can extend that out to 32 or 64 steps. I don't know how to do that yet, but it allows you to sequence by note or by just playing. I think there's also a chord feature. Yeah, so if you hit chord, it'll actually play 1-finger chords for you. So it allows you to build up songs this way using 4 different tracks. My first impression of the Sonicware Liven Evoke is a generally positive one, especially when you consider what you get for the money here. The way that they've set up the instrument to select an acoustic sound and you get to blend that with a waveform is unique. You can kind of create some cool sounds with that. The backtide modulation and the speed and the harmonic and the pitch adjustments that you have over here are neat, but they are not that dramatic with every single combination of acoustic instrument and waveform. They work better for some compared to others. They also work a lot better to hear that backtide modulation if you are using the chord feature and you're playing longer notes, which you actually have an opportunity to have the sound sort of go out and then modulate back in with that backtide modulation so you can appreciate what these knobs are doing. For shorter notes, it doesn't really show up that much, if at all. As you go through the workflow, I like the way that the knobs are laid out and they work with your filters, your LFOs, and the granular effects to add in some extra textures and little sparkles within your sounds. You've got these 2 shift functions down here, which I think really help out with the workflow. You don't have to go into deep menu diving with this. A lot of the stuff is accessible with the knobs on the front and the buttons by using the buttons themselves or the knobs themselves in conjunction with the 2 shift buttons that you have here. And then the 4 tracks with the sequencer work fairly well. I don't have really anything bad to say, any complaints about the sequencer at this point. As I go through it and use some more advanced features with it and try to figure out some of the copy and paste options that I hope are there, I may have more to offer there. But my first impressions of the sequencer are, yeah, it works totally fine, absolutely usable. The key bed, while the keys are mushy, I still found them to be playable. I think I like them better than, say, a Roland IRA compact series of synthesizers that have those small, rubbery, buttons that are just mushy and hard to hit. These, while they're mushy, you still can play them, especially when you factor in the arpeggiator that's here, as well as the chord functions that you could play chords with one finger. If there's any kind of complaints that I have with this, maybe the 2 complaints are the onboard speaker. The onboard speaker is nothing to get excited about. It works in a pinch, but you're going to want to use headphones 90% of the time if you can. especially if you want to appreciate the granular effects and the panning effects, which are nice, and you have parameter locking as you go through, so you can create some interesting stereo textures there. You want the headphones to be able to appreciate that. And I wish it had a USB port. This way you could back up your patterns and your songs. It would also be nice if they were able to move this from a 9-volt power supply down to like a 5-volt power supply with a USB port, and you could power it with a USB battery bank. That would have been awesome. But at least they offer you the ability to power this thing with 6 AA batteries. It's at least a workable compromise. Overall, again, first impressions of the device are positive. I think, if you want to buy it, it's going to come down to, do you like the sounds that it can generate? If you're into ambient music, this, I think, can absolutely do that. Even though Sonicware, they've got a Liven model that is the ambient, that does that very well. I think the Evoke can do ambient music, but it offers more. It can give you some more dynamic soundscapes, some sweeping soundscapes, because the melodies that you can construct from here can be a little bit more advanced, complex, and have some more motion to them than, say, the Liven ambient model. So if you like those kinds of sounds, I think this device for the price point is something that could be really interesting for you. I put together a song that I created in about 15 to 20 minutes without reading the manual. I don't understand the advanced features of this thing yet, but just to give you an appreciation of what you could sort of do right out of the box without looking at the manual and just playing around with the function somewhat, I'll leave you with my first impression of building up a song and see if it's something that resonates with you. But overall, I'll probably post some more content using the Liven Evoke. I was thinking about a quick tip series of videos where I just sort of address one particular feature at a time. But if there's something in particular that you want me to address, you can leave a note in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to it. All right, so I'll leave you with the song at the end of this video, and I'll see you again next time. All right, goodbye.